Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com. It's that time of the year. Get ready for your Christmas presents, shoes, hoodies, sweatpants, anything else you need, backpacks, they got it. Resolite.com, the Mat Company, and Pure and Clean Sports. We appreciate all these great companies for supporting what we do. Joined today by somebody who I probably spent more time with consecutively this past weekend than I have in 10 years. My guy, Grant Turner. What a great weekend it was, GT.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was really cool to kind of be in Tulsa and see this kind of event pop off. It was a lot of fun. And we got a chance to see a lot of the same, people, and it was kind of felt like NCAA's, just the vibe was that way.
The vibe was that way, and Tulsa's held it recently enough, and it felt a little Big 12-ish if you've been to that. It's the certain pubs, the rooftop bars, those kind of things. We did not get Grant on the piano this weekend. That was a major box we didn't check, but we'll put that down the road. That's a special engagement kind of thing. Have to have enough people there for that. Jeremy tried to get him on the karaoke mic, but we chose to hang back. We didn't want to bring the house down too hard. So initial thoughts just on the tournament, like what did you think overall, how it was ran, the vibe, like you said, the energy, the schedule, what'd you like and dislike?
Well, I think anytime that you're trying to do a national tournament from scratch that hasn't really been done before, and once again, a lot different than the multi-division national duels, which has kind of been the only, they did that Matt Mayhem thing for a little while. There was kind of the regional format that was on college campuses and things of that nature. But when you get to this national duels type environment, I thought it did give you an NCAA feel. And once again, year one is always kind of the toughest through the gate. I think the Tulsa, Big 12 comparison was very apt for that. As far as kind of the fan bases, the colleges, kind of all being there. And then recently having the NCAA tournament there, I think everybody kind of knew where to stay, where to go, how the venue was. So a lot of those things felt very comfortable. I think the biggest thing when it came to, the kind of the team selection and all that kind of stuff, there's some heavy hitters there. There were some great teams, great matchups that we all kind of, we were hoping to see, and then some of it came to fruition. I don't think there was a single matchup that we didn't see that we maybe wanted to see. I think it was just some really, really great. We got to see, just on the top of my head, the 184-pound weight class. All of those matches happened. That was
1,000%, and people could have ducked because of the dual meet score.
Yeah, and I think also we got front side, back side, great matches. I think we had. We were sitting there chatting about kind of there was maybe a few guys on a few teams that maybe just because their teams weren't necessarily a great dual team, they didn't get a chance to advance and see somebody that they wanted to be able to compete against or get some seeding criteria, right? So it's a little bit different than an individual tournament. Your team kind of dictated whether or not that matchup was going to happen or not.
Yeah, I got to talk to Eric Larkin yesterday, and his son might be the breakout, him and Sergio Vega. But nobody had really seen Caleb or Kyler Larkin wrestle. They won the Michigan State Open in the freshman-sophomore division, but, the bigger one beat Lachlan McNeil 12-3, and no disrespect to Lachlan. Larkin wrestled great, but I talked to Eric yesterday, and it's it would have been great to get another match or two, to your point. Another point that we ran into a guy, and he talked about how many number one ranked guys lost in this tournament, right? Vincent Robinson loses, McAnally loses, Ferrari loses. You can kind of go up and down the line. Antrell Taylor lost, right? So, and we got NCAA rematches at 25, 33, 41, right? Which those were all possibles, but we got them all. I'll tell you where I was surprised. I was surprised Ferrari wrestled Sinclair, because the duel was out of reach. And so big tip of the cap to those guys. I thought they might load manage AJ Ferrari a little bit, and he wrestled every duel. So not the Ferraris, but just some of these guys, they come to scrap every time, but just some of those, I was also wrong. I thought they would bump Hardy against Mendez in that duel. I thought they would try to get a split, and they didn't. Overall, though, the picks were pretty good. I think like we all had everybody make it. We had the Final Four. It was pretty chalky Final Four. And, I was teasing you because I had the semi right on both sides and I got the final right. But to be fair, you could have justified any combination of those and had a very strong point. It all comes down to a couple coin flip matches, and we'll get specifically into the semis and finals. But just overall, I think the one glitch I saw was you have to know who won a dual meet. You can't have it go 20 minutes and then announce the wrong team and then figure it out later. And we had the same potential problem at Hall of Fame duels, and we figured it out fairly quickly. And then the next year we had the criteria on at every table. And you have to have, like, that's a learning thing, right? Like, you need to have that criteria there. And it's not a big deal. Print it out, send a QR code, whatever you got to do, but so that it's there. But like, I heard Jared Freyer, he was talking to the guy above us on Media Road, GT, and it was a very interesting conversation. He goes, well, I thought it was this. And he goes, well, they forgot a riding time point, but it doesn't really matter. And Freyer goes, it definitely matters. And they got it right. And the old rule used to be it was a number of 6-point wins, but then 5-point wins. And Cannon Webster had a Tech, and Virginia Tech had 2 majors. The total match points thing is weird if you use that as a criteria, because at a Tech, if you're beating me by 15, they stop you from killing me worse. Where the majors, you can get all the way up to 14. So it's an interesting theory, but tons of great duels. I'll pull up the bracket from the National Duals website. And and big shout out to Taylor Gregorio. Is that how you say her name? Am I got that right?
Yep.
She was there. She's a former Oklahoma State person. She did a lot of the media stuff, made sure we got all our stuff. The staff at the BOK is great. GT, hospitality room on point, easy access to the interview area where the restrooms are, easy path to walk into the building. So shout out to those guys. I guess we'll just go through the duels very quickly and big matchups. Like Iowa, Illinois, the big matchup was Sinclair, who lost to Ferrari in a really competitive match. We were both impressed by Sinclair's game plan. Whenever Ferrari hit that swing single, he didn't sprawl backwards. He sprawled and chased the far ankle and almost got a takedown there. So that was really interesting. Illinois, Little Rock was pretty chalky. NC State, Northern Iowa was really interesting, Grant. Like NC State ran off and hid, got like the first 6 or 7 matches. Probably the biggest upset was Will Denny beating Ryder Downey. And that happened. And, the duel kind of got away from Northern Iowa fairly quickly. Oklahoma State, Cornell. That's a weird duel. Cornell won 4 matches. Ferrara beats Figs. Jackson Joy beats Swiderski. Simon Ruiz beats Facundo. And they had one other win in there, which is slipping my mind right now. But Cornell's going to be pretty freaking good, man. They went 0-2 here, but Jackson Joy moves into the rankings. Simon Ruiz is a national finalist candidate. Like, we didn't get to see him against Patrick Kennedy, which would have been cool to see. Like you were talking about, the draws set that up. Ohio State, Wyoming. Ohio State was freaking on fire this weekend, man. They killed everybody. It was like 33-6, 29-6, 33-3, 27-12. Virginia Tech, Minnesota dueled twice. Probably besides the Illinois Virginia Tech duel, probably the duels of the tournament. And then Arizona State lost to Michigan, and the Larkins was kind of the story there for Arizona State. The Mantanonis looked really good. And no Dylan Ragusin, so he must be nursing an injury. We're not going to talk about all the backside duels. Quarterfinals, Iowa, Illinois, fairly chalky. Cannon Webster majored Jordan Williams. That was pretty interesting. Did you get a chance to watch much of the Ayala Lucas Byrd match?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. I thought that like Ayala wrestled him a lot closer, even though the score didn't indicate that. I think Byrd got a late takedown that was, I think it was more like 4-2, and Ayala was in on a shot and basically got out scrambled, and all of a sudden the match is 7-2.
That's exactly what happened. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So Byrd's really gritty, but Ayala was right there with him. NC State, Oklahoma State, that was a very chippy duel. We were down there standing next to Fretwell, I believe, right? Because that's the Singleton, when Singleton pinned Facundo. So Vincent Robinson beat Spratley. I'm trying to think some of the other Swiderski. Swiderski had a hard weekend, but that was a tough match for him. Like, he got hit for the headbutt on the double leg, which certainly was controversial. That was the difference in the match. It was 2-1, and it certainly felt like he did enough to earn a stalling point against Biskins to get to overtime. Zach Esposito cost them a team point. It didn't ultimately matter. That was a little crazy. Ohio State boat raced Minnesota, and Nebraska beat Michigan. So then the semis are set, right? And now in GT, we went through this. Like, there's all these matches. Like, okay, we think this team's going to win 3 and this team's going to win 2, and there's 5 toss-ups. And not too many of the 3s and 2s that we thought were different. Iowa, Oklahoma State, right off the bat, though, crazy, right? Like, Spratley gets a takedown. He's going to win that 4-2 match, right? The one takedown, trade escapes. And we talked to a guy in Media Row, and he goes, Spratley puts his skates on too early. And I think that's something David's going to work with him on, right? Because he just tried to defend the whole third period, and Peterson snuck him late and got a really, really slick takedown, like, I don't know, with 10 seconds left, give or take, to get that match. I mean, you're still actively coaching. They've got to get Spratley to continue to try to score longer. Would you agree?
Well, I think, if we get into the nerd aspect of wrestling, Spratley has that really good, shot defense, body cradles, very scrambly positions where he feels very comfortable. And I think in that position where he was wrestling Peterson, he basically was on the edge of the mat. And I think he relaxed a little bit too much, and Dean ran around him where he thought he could be out of bounds or be able to basically defend that position a little bit better. But I think the same thing happened with V-Rob in that match, where he's, basically trying to get after Vincent really late in matches. And I think there's aspects of specific people where you just be like, well, if David is up by 2 or 3, that's iced. His shutdown defense is just really good. He knows how to win those tight matches. He knows enough to not get called for stalling. He knows how to be able to still be aggressive but not over pursue. I think a lot of that stuff for Spratley, I think, is the next evolution of his game, because he's a really, really good wrestler. But I think if you want to just improve certain specific areas, end of match, either getting wins or holding on to wins, is I think that extremely ultra focused part of his game that I think David and all those guys should work on. If I'm throwing tomatoes from the cheap seats,
you're not throwing tomatoes. You can make an observation from Media Row and it be accurate. And you're not saying you're a better coach than anybody else. Sometimes a little distance actually helps you. You don't see things. So, and you're not saying they're not great coaches. We agree they have a great coaching staff. And sometimes you have to see this happen and you go, hey, man, you're really good. You can get 2 takedowns in a match, not just 1. And if you want to get your go behind, hit some shots, because those guys are going to have to reshoot, and that's when you can get to your go behind. 33. So Figueroa didn't wrestle the second day. The rumor is he went home, went home. Got in an Uber, went back to Stillwater, got his stuff, and is no longer there. So Ronnie Ramirez wrestled day 2. It also strengthens. Willie put out what I had told him, which is fairly interesting, that Jax is graduating in December and is going to do at least 5 dates. And Oklahoma State doesn't have a lot of holes in their lineup, but 33 is one of them where they can get significantly. He would be a significant upgrade. So anyway, Ronnie Ramirez gets the first takedown, but Ayala played the veteran, card, chipped away, got a stall call or two, then it got a takedown to pull away. 41, Sergio Vega might be the story of the tournament. Like, he beat Ryan Jack. He beat Josh Saunders close, and he beat Ryan Jack, and then he beat Nasir Bailey. And then he smashed Brock Hardy for third, like 11 or 12-2. And I haven't looked at all the rankings yet, but I think he should be number 2 in the country. Like, he beat everybody, including Hardy, head to head. So 49, that was Ryder Block and Swiderski, and Ryder Block wins on rideouts. So Swiderski's like stocked down since the All-Star meet. That was really interesting. The other match that really stuck out to me, just so we don't go through every single match, I thought 65 was really interesting, right? Like Caliendo and Lockett. Lockett gets the first takedown, did a lot of that one knee wrestling. Caliendo got a stall call and had riding time, so it was tied. It's like that 3-1, but it's 4-2, and then the stall call 4-3, and then the riding time makes it 4-4. And then Lockett goes and gets one. He goes, pops out the backside. Caliendo's got him in kind of a Merkle position, GT. And then Lockett, just body awareness, just steps over the backside, puts a boot in. And the other thing at 25 that kind of messed things up was Peterson hit a high flyer at the beginning of that match, and they wanted back points, and they threw their brick and lost. So they lost their brick at 25, which that kind of killed them. What'd you think about 65? Like, I didn't ask you, did you pick Caliendo or D ahead of time? And does the match A, live up to expectations, and B, did it go like how you thought it would go?
Well, I think we kind of addressed a little bit of how Caliendo's style and LaDarion's style is very different. Kind of like Lockett kind of plays a little bit more of like that bouncy, like kind of chase me, but like Lockett went after him on a few really good blast doubles that Caliendo was able to get his arm down and stop some of those, from open and from space attacks. If you did watch the match, like all the way towards the end, this kind of weird scramble position, I think it maybe took 15, 20 minutes to decide whether or not it was a takedown. And I think though, if you were not a person that kind of had watched Lockett, he had a lot of gamesmanship for a very young athlete. He was in matches. He was wrestling extremely tough. It reflected it in the rankings, so we'll just see how the rest of the year goes for him. But he's ready and primed to, make a really good run this year. I think he could be, pretty special and maybe kind of run the table a little bit. I don't think he's going to see hardly anybody that's in that top tier on a week-to-week basis. I think if you look at the Big 12, specifically at the rankings, he's going to have.
He doesn't do. He doesn't wrestle Messenbrink. He doesn't wrestle. He'll wrestle Caliendo again in the duel. He doesn't wrestle Blaze. He doesn't wrestle Bianchi, I don't think. He already beat Garvin. Doesn't wrestle Brignola. Doesn't wrestle Scholes. Doesn't wrestle Sparks. He'll wrestle LJ Arujau and Ryder Downey and Drake Rhodes. But that's 11, 12, and 13. To your point.
And once again, I think. He already wrestled Hunter Garvin, so he's seen some really, really tough guys out the gate. We're talking about the third week of the season, and he's already had, 4 legit matches that mean a lot for the entire season. So that match was great. I thought, within kind of that 65-pound weight class, I was very impressed with Scholes. Kind of throughout the weekend and whatnot. Ryan Burton from Virginia Tech, that match was crazy between him and Scholes. That was right in front of us. I believe that was an overtime match. Yeah, pretty crazy.
The other kid who we haven't mentioned who had himself a weekend was Landon Robideau. So he's a kid, like, we'll get to the rankings. Oklahoma State had some weird stuff because Spratley drops, Figueroa drops. I'll go through the negatives first. Facundo drops. Zach Ryder drops. But then you have Sergio Vega, who's now top 3, I would imagine. Landon Robideau's top 3, I would imagine. LaDarion Lockett, top 3, I would imagine. And they're all freaking true freshmen. So the rest of that duel, Kennedy beats Facundo in overtime. Ferrari beats Zach Ryder, 1 takedown to none. And Dean beats Cody Merrill. That felt like a very toss-up-y match. So that was fairly important to the duel. Actually, super important. Iowa ends up beating Oklahoma State 18-16, but Keeter didn't wrestle the whole weekend. It never affected a single duel, but you know we have to kind of wonder what's up with him. The other semifinal, so I'll run through these results and then we can come back and talk about them. McCrone over Kaler, Davino Major over Ayub, Mendez 1 takedown to none over Hardy, Ethan Styles pins Zinkin, Brandon Cannon majors Antrell Taylor after he lost to Lehigh by major the first day. Patty Gallagher majors Araujo, Carson Karchla beats Minto, Fishback beats Allred, McDaniel beats Shumate, Feldman beats Ferrari, 1 takedown to none. Any of your takeaways from the Ohio State-Nebraska duel besides just the complete boat racing that it was?
Well, I mean, it's probably a lot more positive for the Buckeyes when you kind of talk about that duel. Like a lot of those guys like wrestled really, really well. And It's not like, let's not say that like Nebraska, they were in a lot of matches. And we talked about that a little bit where, I think in some of the duels, it was either a 1-point match or overtime in 7 out of 10 weight classes. And it's like, well, a lot of those things maybe fell a certain way where you didn't think that they would.
Yeah.
So I think, once again, there's been times in, basically the careers of, like dual meets where, you got a couple of guys that, hey, we normally don't lose at 57. And Taylor had a less than stellar weekend. But for Nebraska to be a really, really good dual team, they need points at certain weight classes. Also having Van D out of the lineup, he's returning All-American. That's tough. Great win by Silas Allred this weekend. It was great to see kind of him in the mix. I mean, he lost to Fishback in that specific duel, but he had a great win, I believe, against Zach Ryder.
He did. Overtime. Went and got it, I think. We'll look it up in a second.
And he was close to scoring multiple times against Ryder. That was just a really tough barn burner match. When we're talking about number ones going down, Ferrari versus Feldman, another great combination match of that caliber. So I think that was a really, really kind of a telling win that like Ferrari looked really, really good at heavyweight, but then he had to wrestle Feldman, who's a little bit more of a shorter, athletic, maybe not as heavy type guy, and kind of gave him a little bit of fits.
He got that first takedown, right? And it just didn't chase him down. Go ahead. I apologize. I interrupted you.
No, you're good. No, I would say probably another guy from this duel that we can maybe give some flowers to is Patty Gallagher had a pretty good weekend.
He did.
He was in a tough match in the finals against Caliendo, and once again another 1-to-1 overtime.
He's right there.
He's right there, right? So
right there. Yeah. It was my takeaways from this duel. First of all, I think Mendez is so freaking good. You almost just take him for granted. The second thing that I thought, which Ohio State did, was brilliant. They wrestled McCrone in this duel, and Nick Bouzakis was gigantic for the final. Like when he came, I told you, I'm like, he's beating Dean Peterson. Like, I mean, he just whipped him over like a child, you know. And when we get to the rankings, which we'll have to kind of speed this up, or we maybe just do another podcast later on this week about that. But he was so much bigger; it was crazy. So I'm trying to think of any of the other matches. Karchula beating Minto. We kind of, you and me had talked about that. Like maybe their body styles would give Minto problems. Hard to get to Karchula. Really difficult. Nebraska went 3-17 on Saturday. PT. I think if you're the coaching staff, you just throw it out. It was a bad day. Okay, like that's it. It is what it is. We keep it moving. So, you know. I mean, I don't think anybody was beating Ohio State this weekend. Okay, so, but I think in another day they could wrestle Oklahoma State much closer than they did. So, speaking of that duel, I think the third place match is here. Here it is. Okay. Spratley pins Kyler. Ronnie Ramirez beats Cale Lauritsen. Probably the most shocking match of the entire tournament. Sergio Vega beats Brock Hardy 13-2. That was bonkers. Swiderski squeaks by Zinkin. Robideau techs Gardarell, their backup. LaDarion Lockett gets a forfeit. Facundo Minto went 2-1 on a draping scissors brick. I was texting with a buddy this morning. I'm like, this is going to hose Minto in the common opponent criteria because Facundo's got a bunch of losses already. Then you've got the Silas Allred go and get it that you talked about his weekend against Zach Ryder. Zach Ryder had himself a hard weekend too for Oklahoma State. Like Figueroa, Zach Ryder, Facundo were probably, and Swiderski was probably far down as Vega, Robideau, and Lockett were up. So that was kind of interesting. Merrill beats Cam McDaniel on tiebreakers, and then Ferrari beats Doucette on riding time. So that set the finals, GT. And the finals, let's see if they have this on here. There's the semis. Here's Wrestlebacks. Okay, so the finals, I mean, we can go through it. We know these. So Bouzakis, Dean Peterson, just went out and picked him up and cradled him. Like, he put him in that, you call it that body cradle, and that's probably the best term for it. Like, Peterson hit the high crotch, and he picked him up. It looked like you picking me up. Like, hey, bro, we're just not in the same weight class. You know, put him on his side, put him in a cradle. Got the cradle, and I my arms are so short, I was never a cradler, but I love watching guys that know where they are in cradles because they make these little adjustments, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm giving up back points to you're just dead. You're getting pinned. You and me have talked about how good we think Ben Davino is, and he was so good in the final, Grant. Like, he hit that little barrel roll, Kelly, dump, fireman's, whatever you want to call it, and then came right back with a back slap high crotch out of that same position. I called my pops last night. I'm like, you gotta go watch this match again. Like, just the skill and technique from that are freaking amazing. So we'll just check in like every two matches. Like, what'd you think of 25 and 33? What would you add that either I got right or wrong?
I think probably the most shocking out of those two matches is how well Davino looked against Ayala. And we all know that Ayala is a two-time finalist. Like, he's as good as they get. Yeah. Right. So, but Davino, I think it was 3 takedowns to nothing.
Yes.
So, or if Drake got, I think it was all escapes as far as.
Oh, it's 10-4. 3 takedowns, an escape versus 4 escapes.
Yeah, I think it's very telling that, like, that was not like one big move and 3 escapes. It was, 3 takedowns and an escape. It was very well crafted match by Davino. And And I think, like Bouzakis, we talked about like, hey, you give that guy, 12-hour weigh-in, he just looks strong. And once again, Bouzakis has always been strong, but it's give that guy some extra time, because we kind of mentioned that like early in the tournament he was like not as crisp, but like that final start at 6:15, he's ready to rock and roll.
It's going to be a very interesting thing for ranking and seeding criteria, because he has a win off a 10-hour weigh-in, and there'll never be a day where he gets that again unless it's the national finals.
Yeah.
But that dude in the finals, though, good Lord. Like, I'd probably pick him over Luke if he gets a 10-hour weigh-in. So 41, Jesse Mendez, Tech falls Nasir Bailey. And Nasir Bailey had a weird situation with Vega. We didn't talk about that in that semi, where it was 1-1. He's got the leg in the air, and tries to take him down, can't. And then as soon as the foot hits the ground, Vega gets a reshot or just a shot and scores. And like Nasir didn't really counter. And that was a match where neither one of them picked down. Remember, we were talking about that? Like, both guys are good on top. So Vega's an interesting freshman. Most freshmen don't scare you on top. And he's really good. But anyway, so Mendez just destroyed Bailey. And then you and me both picked Ryder Block. I don't think we would have picked Ryder Block going into the tournament. I think we picked Ryder Block like going into the finals because of how well he was wrestling. I had picked Styles, which is why I thought Ohio State would win the duel. And Styles gets the only takedown in the match, but Ryder Block was right there. He had, he was riding really well, looked really good in the scrambles. They may have a pretty significant upgrade there, and it looks like Estrada's going to redshirt this year. Like we originally thought he might be there. 57, Jordan Williams didn't wrestle. So, I mean, we can talk about 41, 49, and then I'll go tee up 57 for you. What are your thoughts on those two?
Well, I think one of the things about the match with, Mendez and Nasir is that they almost stalled him out of the match.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily like all of those points. Like Nasir gave up a 2-point stall call.
Yes.
So I think, basically on the edge, Mendez looked really talented, like basically kind of forced the action, and Nasir didn't necessarily have an answer for it. And we talked about how I don't think anybody chose down against Bailey the entire weekend.
That's probably true. And one person chose down against Vega, and it killed him, Ryan Jack. That was the difference in the match. So, yeah, those guys are a problem on top. It's an interesting thing. I mean, we can talk about it later, but Mendez-Vega is a very interesting matchup to me. Like, you have to finish clean on Vega, and I would say you have to get his foot in the air. I think you have to get both feet off the ground. I think you got to double them and windshield wiper and hide your feet from the scrambles. So 57, Brandon Cannon wins against Voinovich. Jordan Williams didn't wrestle day 2. And then, so we pointed this out. Jesse Mendez had outscored Iowa through the first 6 matches. Iowa had 1 regulation takedown the entire final. They didn't score a takedown the first 5 matches. There was no heavyweight match. And Dean got a takedown. And 65, 74, 84 were all 4-1 overtime matches. Caliendo wins. PK wins. Ferrari wins. None of those matches felt like, oh my gosh, this guy was really in and didn't get it. They're both pretty even. Nobody's taking any chances. And you know how that is, GT. If you're better than me, but if you don't want to take any chances, you can let me hang around. Then you fall, the Eddie Murphy, you fall in the banana peel, like I can go get one. So I think if you're coaching the Iowa guys, especially Kennedy, well, those 3 guys, they're all sort of projected finalists. Maybe Caliendo not after the Lockett match, but he could win that match. But top 3 guys for sure. they got to find something they feel more comfortable taking shots on, and either scoring or getting to their scrambles or getting stalling calls. Would you agree with that as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing about, we've always discussed how Karchla and PK wrestled close no matter what. I mean, it's just a meat grinder of a match between those two guys almost all the time.
Yeah.
Right. I was a little bit more surprised with Caliendo's ability not to, get some more offense going against Gallagher.
Yeah.
It was just maybe more of a credit to Gallagher's preparation or what he was doing in the match. But once again, I don't fault PK for an overtime win against Karchla. Those are tough matches. I think, Ferrari and Fishback, kind of the same thing. Fishback's pretty talented, but once again, I don't think that, there was a ton of extravagant action or like trying to wrestle through positions a little bit more. It was a little bit more tactical that way. Even if you look at like Mo's match at 97, he was able to create, I think it was either a 5 or 6 point move out of the situation where he like kind of puts him to his back and, gets some back points. That ends up ultimately being the big move in that match. But, it's, Mo's style, he's going to be able to score some, but, once again, I think he's a little bit more of like your typical, 5-4 type match just because of his ability. And once again, he looked good this weekend. I'm going to make sure that everybody kind of realized like he pins Bates. He almost pins Shoemate in the finals.
Same move. Same move.
Yep, same move. In which he almost got, a little bit of trouble at the very beginning of the match, went back to it a little bit later, but
he almost caught Merrill in that same move too.
Yeah. I think another telling point of the match, I think when I had some windshield time talking to people a little bit, is one of the stats that I thought was probably the most telling of the entire duel in general was that Ohio State like doubled up Iowa in just match points.
Yeah.
Meaning like, we did the Iowa faithful like didn't score as many points, or even it wasn't even close. So like match points, they're having trouble getting to some of the offense at some of those matches. Once again, think of it as the national finals. There's a couple overtime matches, but it was like a majority of that was 1-1 up until they get basically 9 points. You take 9 points away from Iowa in those last 3 overtime matches.
Yeah.
They've almost tripled their match points.
100%.
So, you take that type of attitude when you look at all those things.
In the first 5 matches, Ryder Block's the only guy that came close to getting a takedown.
Yeah.
I mean, Dean Peterson was in on a leg, and that's where Buzakis wanted him. Davino controlled every tie. Jesse Mendez controlled every tie. Ryder Block was in some scrambles where he could have got one. And then at 57, Cannon controlled it. Like, they weren't in danger. It was a weird duel because, and momentum's a real thing, GT. Like, I picked Ohio State to win 17-16. I thought Mendez would get a tech. I have to go back and look at who I thought, but I thought, this is how wrong I am. I thought Caliendo would get a major. Okay. But I also had Keeter and Feldman actually wrestling, so that kind of threw some things off too. But yeah, so at 97 and Dean wins, you talk about guys stock up, stock down, like Jordan Williams and Nasir Bailey stock down, especially from Bellarmine duel. And you and me talked about the Bellarmine duel, and we were teasing each other all weekend about JUCO and NAI and D3 and that stuff. But if you're a guy that's lived in that world like we both have, you root for Dean. Like he's like, hey, he's a guy that can show, hey, we have guys down here that are better than you think we are. And he didn't look good against Bellarmine at all. I mean, I'm sure he would say that. I'm sure Tom and Terry and Morningstar would say it. He looks like a legit All-American threat this weekend. Like, I mean, because he beat Merrill and Merrill beat McDaniel. I mean, there's other results out there, but, the transitive property, I also think the Iowa-Oklahoma State duel round 2 is fascinating. I think that's going to be, must watch. So I think me and you or me and Mark or some combination thereof will go through the ranking stuff. I will just have one complaint, and it's a couple people sent me that Ferrari's number 1 at 84. I have no problem with him being super high. I think Rocco Welsh should be 1. He's wrestled in a national tournament as a true freshman, made the finals, and only lost to the 5-time champ. And I think, that should count for something. I had a buddy of mine trying to say Penn State is being penalized for their schedule. I'm like, you were there. Their whole freaking team was over at U23s or U20s. Like your guy, he has to take, when he comes back, you can't just put him in the same practices as everybody else. Like, he traveled, he made weight, he competed. He may not have killed himself to make weight because of the difference between 197 and 97 kilos, but all the rest of it's true. There's a ton of anxiety, stress on your body. I'm sure you guys eased him back in, sort of a pitch count at practice, that kind of stuff. Maybe he's sparring when everybody else is going live. I don't want the secret sauce, but people have to. I don't think people really process what that is. So,
well, let's say, for instance, we go through this, and once again, Penn State's pretty active on the senior level, right? So they had a world or national tournament in September. Then they had 7 out of the 10 weight classes competing at U23s in October. Then, 3 weeks later, they're at another national tournament in Tulsa, where they're going to, once again, I think the wrestling schedule, when it comes to those type of things, is brutal because you're peaking and training through a lot of that stuff. And once again, Penn State's schedule is still the Big Ten schedule. They're still going to have to wrestle all of those great teams within the Big Ten structure.
Yeah.
And they're not going to wrestle them all inside Rec Hall, and they're not going to wrestle them all inside Bryce Jordan. They're going to have to go to places. They're going to have to go wrestle in front of some nasty crowds that are ready to see the number 1 team in the nation come to their hometown. So
a few people tweeted out Ohio State is on Penn State's schedule, or vice versa, however you want to say it. They're on each other's schedule this year. So, and I think it's the last duel of the regular season, the last weekend. So I think that's kind of become must-watch television. I think it's on literally Friday, February 13th. So make plans with your Valentine now to make sure she understands where you'll be on Friday night. So that's going to be a great duel. I think Penn State's the best team in the country. And I don't think we had anybody winning more than 2 matches off them, but it feels like Ohio State might get to 3. That's no disrespect to them. I just think Penn State's really good. We'll sign off with this. Arizona State wrestles Oklahoma State at Arizona State on Sunday. I don't think there's any way they can win the duel, but Little Larkin against Ronnie Ramirez should be a really good match. Pearson Manville, Vega is an interesting match. I think Vega's better, but Pearson Manville's an absolute grinder and will not get discouraged. And then 49, Swiderski and the bigger, older Larkin is an interesting match. And I think your exact quote this weekend was, "I'm not a rankings nerd like you, Mirikitani." So did I quote you accurately on that?
That is 1,000%. I would tell you dudes, when you're over here talking about rankings and all this other stuff, I'm like, I'm not a rankings guy. I respect the nerd level that you and Earl and Willie and
Earl's great.
They can do that, but it's one of those things where I'm like, it does matter for the seeding criteria at the national tournament and or Big 10s, Big 12s, and outside of that, for me, you nerds can fight for the entire season, and I'll talk to you guys in March.
Yeah, I think it was interesting though. That's a very fair way to say it. But it was fun. There's downtime, there's commercial time. How are we going to do 25? Where basically everybody lost to everybody this weekend. The only guy that didn't lose to anybody, I think Buzakis actually lost too. So it was, that was crazy. I think in general, to sum it up, and tell me if you don't agree with me on anything. awesome first run at a national duels, like a full tournament. The fact that it was in a venue where the NCAAs have been held and the Big 12s have been held gives it more credibility. I think the money thing doesn't really matter as much to people once the schools, I mean, they're not trying to cut guys loose or do the takedown bonus, any of that other stuff. And they sat certain guys like Cantrell Taylor didn't wrestle the last duel. I mean, like if that difference in money was such a big deal to them, they would have wrestled them. Like they're still going to do what's right for their guys and their team. So really good first iteration of it. It was absolutely a blast sitting like with you and Willie and Earl and all those people on Media Row. I think we both want to thank Tulsa. Just there's a lot of kindness down in that town, and it's great running into people in between rounds that are wrestling fans, and it was a great experience. So I'll let you have the last word. We can talk about my prowess in prognostication, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think now that it's on the schedule, and if it does happen quite a bit more in that kind of that second or third week of, whatever it is, November, I think it becomes more of a destination for a lot more people. I think a lot more people would want to maybe go to that as a, preseason national tournament type situation where you could get a lot more maybe alumni and fans. It was great wrestling all day. Like you could go and watch the opening round. You could come back for wrestle-offs. You could come and watch all the way just like the front side matches. You could just stay and watch all backside matches, whatever you wanted to be able to do. It was just a really good experience. I think that once again, Tom Brand said it, I think in an interview that they were there and, once again, it was a great tournament and we're here to represent and, we're here for the money and people really stepped up and put their money where their mouth is to make this event happen the way that it was supposed to happen. It did feel like a national tournament.
And shout out to our brethren at Flow. They had a gazillion people running around doing stuff. They treated it like a first-class event. I'm sure they would have loved to have the final, but they just put their heads down and went to work and promoted the hell out of it, and that's great too. Sorry, I cut you off. I apologize.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it was just great event. If you can, put it on your calendar for next year.
Yeah, and a lot of hotels within walking distance and a lot of hotels within 15 minutes, and super entertaining, fun weekend where neither of us had a whole lot of heavy lifting on our plate, so it was really enjoyable. For Grant, I'm David. We appreciate you guys watching, listening. Smash that like and share button and subscribe button. We'll see you all soon.